Sit with me as a tax attorney while I continue to go through tax strike comments. Now, my whole job from like 9 to 5, actually, it's more like 8 and calls in the middle of the night, is defending taxpayers from civil and criminal enforcement actions with the IRS and the Department of Justice. I have, everyday working class people all the way up to pretty famous celebrities that have tax problems. And this is my whole sole job. I'm really just doing this like a public service announcement because I don't want to see people get financially hurt and really not make an impact on the system. But I would like to discuss this comment because I think it's an important point to talk about. It says, what would happen if if they tried to jail half of the working class ages, 18 to 35, over taxes? I imagine it would be a lose-lose. And yes, that's a delicate balance of civil and criminal tax enforcement. And how do we get people to comply with the system, right? Public policy wise, it's the same reason why the government doesn't really go around, even though they could take people's homes and kick them out of their primary residence for not filing and paying taxes as a civil enforcement technique. They generally don't do it because creating a bunch of homeless Americans over taxes would create outrage and probably, dismantle the whole system. So they don't do that, right? They use other techniques. And with criminal enforcement, it's really not a good use of their time, money, and effort jailing people, right? So they're going to use civil enforcement techniques. In my video before, I talk about the civil enforcement techniques. You don't file, they file for you. You don't want to withhold, they send an automated letter to your employer saying that your employer has to withhold the money and your employer won't have a choice. So you don't file, you go exempt. The government can do a return for you. It's called a SFR. They can create a liability. They know where you bank and where you work. So the kinds of things they would do is they're going to once they create the tax for you, then they collect the tax for you. So they take it out of your bank account by doing a bank levy. They garnish your wages because they know where you work. So they can send a letter to your employer, and your employer is going to pay it because if their employer doesn't turn over the money, they can be held liable. So they're not going to want to be liable for somebody else's choices. So they're going to turn over the money. Now, the most impactful legislation or civil enforcement technique I have seen is the passport program. So every year, it just for inflation, it's like $69,000, I think, right now. But if you owe $69,000 or more, the government can actually prevent you from renewing your passport or actually revoke your passport. Now, look, I've never seen them take anybody's passport, like at the airport or anything, but if they wanted to start enforcing that, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, right? They just need the database. You go to the airport, they go, you have the balance, you got the lien, you already have the passport certification on your account, bam, take the passport. They don't do that now. I've never seen them do that. All I've seen is with renewals. So if you don't, set something up and you have this passport seriously delinquent transaction code on your account, you go to renew your passport, the State Department, we're not going to send you your passport because you have to get into an approved IRS installment agreement. You've got to set something up before they will decertify and release your passport, and then the State Department can give you your passport. So that's the most effective. And so they will use all those techniques because why? They don't need a lot of humans to do it. They can do it with data, automation, and workflows that are already built in the system. There's already 11 million people that owe back taxes, and the IRS manages collections on them just fine, even with a reduced workforce. And they're planning on building more and more and more automation workflows, so they don't need to do it with humans. So that's how they'll do it. They're not going to jail people, but they'll do returns for you and they'll collect the money automatically from you. And you can participate, which might drag out the process a little bit, but eventually it will have a negative financial impact on you, right? And then if you're willingly doing it, normally taxes can be discharged in bankruptcy, which do another video on that, but they have to meet certain criteria. If you're willfully doing it, then those taxes would never be dischargeable. So then bankruptcy wouldn't even help if they could prove that you intentionally and willfully were not filing and paying taxes. So long story short, I just don't think this is a good method to effectuate change. I don't want to see people get hurt. The government's using data and AI. I have an app that I'm working on called Easily AI, EASALY.ai. And the whole reason I'm building the app is because there's a lot of smaller, easier tax cases that people need help. They don't know how to navigate the system. There are a bunch of IRS programs for relief where people have made bad decisions or they got in a bad spot because something bad happened to them and they don't know how to navigate the system, but they can't necessarily afford a lawyer like me. This is a perfect solution. So just like the government uses data and AI to do enforcement, we can use data and AI to help people navigate through a really complex and tough system and protect themselves and their family.